killed for it. And so, who knows? It's just the text is interesting that Isaac repeats what Abraham does. What lessons we can learn from that? I'm not 100% sure. But you're about to see the same thing happen here, okay? Any other thoughts on that before we move on? Good, because I don't have answers for you. All right, go. Somebody read this for us.
And Isaac sowed in that land and reaped in the same year 100-fold. The Lord blessed him, and the man became rich and gained more and more until he became very wealthy. He had possessions of flocks and herds and many servants, so that the Philistines envied him. Now the Philistines had stopped and filled with earth and all the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham and his father. And Abimelech said to Isaac, "Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we." So Isaac departed from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and settled there. And Isaac dug again the wells of water that had been dug in the days of Abraham his father, which the Philistines had stopped after the death of Abraham. And he gave them the names that his father had given them. But when Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a well of spring water, the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, "The water is ours."
All right, so have we read a story prior to this story about herdsmen arguing? Abraham and Lot. Yeah, Genesis 13, there's an argument going on over land, over water, same situation. So he's just encountered another retelling of the Abraham story. Here we encounter a very similar story, and now the life of Isaac, it's going which direction? It's going the other way. It's going backwards. It's like they're retelling the life of Abraham, but the stories are opposite. They're going in different directions. In a Jewish sense, they sometimes would look at this and they would say it's almost like Isaac is redeeming the story of his father. God is using Isaac to play this out, to play this promise that he's given these people to flesh it out. Not that the story of his father needs a whole lot of redemption. Abraham's a great guy and plays a huge role in this and has made a lot of good decisions, but they're choosing different paths. So he starts with the mistakes of his father, and now he's going backwards through his life. It's almost like he's living back through his father's life and going through a lot of these big picture moments that we have recorded in the Bible. And it's interesting here, but because they're parallel stories, but they have different endings. And so keep reading and watch what happens here. Somebody read that for us. Verse 20.
So he called the name of the well Esek because they contended with him. And then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that also. So he called its name Sitnah. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not quarrel over it. So he called its name Rehoboth, saying, "For now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land." From there he went up to Beersheba, and the Lord appeared to him the same night and said, "I am the God of Abraham your father. Fear not, for I am with you, and will bless you, and multiply your offspring for my servant Abraham's sake." So he built an altar there, and he called upon the name of the Lord, and pitched his tent there, and there Isaac served dug a well.
All right, so this is an Abraham move. This is what Abraham does at the beginning of Abraham's story. The author wants you to see a retelling, a playing out. They're parallel. His son is doing similar things here. And so Abraham's promises are being realized through his son, and the authors want you to see how God is working through this chosen son. And so it continues, verse 25. Somebody read that for us.
So he built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord and pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. When Abimelech went to him from Gerar with Ahuzah his advisor and Phicol
so Isaac takes the promise and the mission of his father that was given to his father, and he claims it. He owns it as his own, and he takes that and he goes into the land and he chooses to stay in this land. So God tells him to stay in this land. Don't go anywhere. Stay committed to the promise, which is exactly what Abraham said. You're not going back to Nahor. You're not. I can't let my son go back there. Like if the wife doesn't come, he's not going back. Hands down, we can't move backwards. We got to move forward in the story of what God is up to. And he says, okay, so he stays there. He's all about the mission. He's all about the promise. He stays right there, and he opens up wells, and people come, and they try and pick a fight. And he says, okay, they're your wells. Take them. Like they want to take the water, and Isaac's like, sure. He digs more wells, and they say, those are our wells. They want to claim those wells. And what does Isaac do? He says, sure, go ahead. I don't care about the well. Well, he does care about the well, but take the well. Okay, I'll go. He digs more wells. He said, okay, they're your wells. Just time and time and time again. Do you know how hard it is to dig a well? Me neither, because I've never dug one. The kids and I are digging a small duck pond on our property. When I say small, I mean like kiddie pool size. We're doing it with shovels. So basically, I'm doing it, and the kids are standing there playing in the water. My goodness. Friday, we worked on this thing, and it took me forever just to dig a kiddie pool size pond. I can't imagine digging a well. And it's not like they're working with excavators and heavy machinery. They're working with probably sticks and who knows, a whittled out stick shovel. I don't have a clue. Maybe their staff. Who knows? They're digging wells. And granted, Isaac has servants, but these are labor-intensive endeavors. And people come along and they're like, it's a pretty nice looking well. I think I'll take it. And Isaac's like, yeah, sure. Go ahead, cheers. He does it time and time again. No, they're yours. What is it about this guy that God sees? I mean, what is it that, like, he just keeps submitting even though he's being treated unjustly? Why is that so appealing to God? And why is that he keeps living in this land, committed to this mission, even though it seemingly is a fruitless endeavor a lot of times for him, and will continue to feel that way for the majority of the people of God? What is this? I mean, what are we looking at here, Justin?
Trust.
So trust. Justin.
I was going to say it's the trust, and he's got the work ethic. I mean, the guy never stops. Every time he gets knocked down, he just kind of picks himself right back up and goes right back at it.
Right. He just keeps going, and because he believes in the promise. He trusts in the promise. And yeah, work ethic, my word. These guys would put us to shame. Jay?
I was going to say he's learned from experience too, because by trusting beforehand, everything's increased, he's become rich, it's worked.
Right.
So he's learned to trust in the plan.
Okay, so he's trusting the plan. He believes in the promise. He's seen it play out this way. The text does, yes, he's very wealthy. He's become rich. Maybe that plays a lot into it, Mike.
And it seems like maybe for as it depends on Isaac, he lives in peace with other men.
Yeah.
He wants to live in peace.
Right. Okay, so he definitely is building repertoire with other people, even if they continue to treat him unjustly. Lonnie?
Is there anything about hospitality shown here in him doing that?
What do you think?
Giving to others?
What do you think?
Well, I thought maybe there might be a little bit of that because we keep talking about hospitality. He was being kind to others and doing things for others and giving of what he had to others. I don't know. I'm just asking a question.
What do y'all think?
Yeah. He's living open-handedly.
Okay.
He's not holding on to what he has and refusing to give and offer or holding on and like not letting go when somebody's trying to take something he gives and he moves on.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of hospitality here, Lonnie, just so you know.
It's also kind of an extension of God's creative act, because water is life in this area, and so he's making the world a better place, whether he gives it to someone else or whatever.
You know, a study I love, and this is off topic here, but the elements, like the essential elements, water, fire, wind, earth, Captain Planet. But it's like, if you ever study the essential elements of creation throughout the Bible, they play an extremely, think about that. Wind is spirit, same word. How important is spirit in the Bible? How important is water in the scheme of redemption? What about fire? Fire plays a very important role in the narrative, the scheme of redemption. Soil? Absolutely. You came from the soil. You are a dirt man. Remember that? You're a dirt person is literally how it's translated. And then you shall return to the dirt, and out of dirt, the essential elements are, I get giddy about that stuff, yeah.
So, so you can directly connect this even to Jesus saying, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And this sums up the whole law.
Okay.
And so you can push this all the way back to this, where the faith of Abraham extended to Isaac. Isaac learned these lessons from his dad. All those particular things roll into how the law is supposed to operate.
Right.
And I think it's the passing on of those traits that we need to keep at the forefront. The law's not, hospitality is still just as important to God as it always has been.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I think it needs to shape us as the body of Christ.
All right, so Paul is suggesting that this points forward all the way to Christ and how Christ sums the law up. I'd 100% agree with that. Just think about the examples that we've seen up to this point. Let's flesh this out a second here, okay? You really start seeing strong examples when Abraham comes on the scene. Abram. He marries a woman who is what? Barren. Even though he has a promise, even though your only value in this society, in this culture at the time, is having a firstborn son. That's the only way that you carry on your name. That's the only thing that brings you value in their mind. You can't do that if you take a barren woman. He knows. Already you see a guy who is completely not about himself. He believes that God will somehow fulfill the promise. Does he make mistakes? Yeah, because he's going to sleep with his servant, or sleep with Sarah's servant, because they feel like they have to carry this out. They have to step in and fix the plan. But yeah, so you have that. And then you have a guy who runs, who hurries to wait on these strangers that came to his tent. He's very hospitable. They cook 60 pounds of flour, basically saying, like, that's all you have. You cook all that you have. You serve, you're hospitable. You consider others more valuable than yourselves. You see this play out with Rebecca here, and just the beauty and the way in which she serves and goes above and beyond. You see it in Isaac. He's like, here's my wells. Just take them, take them, take them. So let's think about this a second. If you were to dig wells, would you just hand them over? And then maybe once you would. Would you do it twice?
Not on my land.
There's a kids movie where
You watch Yellowstone?
I've watched a few of them, yeah. I'm thinking of kids movies. That's where my life revolves. A moose, a cartoon moose that yells, "Get off my land." So we're always yelling that, like, "Get off my land." Why would you not give up your wells 2, 3 times?
They're mine, yeah.
They're mine. Like,
I worked for them.
Water is life.
water is life. You feel a need to protect yourself. You feel a need to control your destiny. Definitely some reasons we wouldn't give our wells up. Russ?
Well, Isaac's reopening these old wells, and he's giving back the name that Abraham gave him.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he seeds them back to
Yeah,
He said, this is Abraham's well, its name is this.
yeah,
And so he's replanning, whose ownership
right,
this really is.
right.
You guys don't have it.
Yeah, and so he's reclaiming that, he's giving them names that have to do with the situations within which that's a Hebrew thing. They give them names with like struggle or whatever, happens around that point. They name stuff. Names are very important in the Hebrew culture. But let's talk about us. Why do we struggle with hospitality?
Because we think it's ours.
We think it's ours. All right, so let's talk about why we struggle, and then we'll talk about solutions, okay?
I think you mentioned control. I think we feel like we have to protect our families, we have to protect ourselves. Maybe we lack a little bit of trust in God's protection and provision, and so we think like I think there's this deep need for like us to protect what is ours. We worked for it. And maybe we'll share. Like we want to share, but when it comes down to it, we've got to keep some things for ourselves because we have to take care of ourselves. And how far are we willing to go?
Yeah. Okay, so there's a protection, there's a lack of trust there. Trey?
I think it even speaks more to Isaac because, it's one thing to be hospitable to someone that's, asked in a way that allows you to be generous. But they quarreled over, they came and basically tried to take something.
Right.
So to be willing to just step back and say you can have it is different than, someone coming up to you and saying, I need something because I'm starving or whatever. I think those are two different levels of being hospitable there.
Right.
It's a lot easier to be generous and gracious to someone who's humble and, in need versus someone who you do something and then they come and physically take it from you because they want it.
Yes.
Those are two different things.
Right. So that speaks even more to his character.
Yeah.
That,
Well, Isaac had servants. Abimelech has an army. There might have been some, hey,
think there's some muscle involved?
yeah, I don't, the fear of what could happen to his family, to his servants, to everything, if there was a war, if you will.
Possibly.
I think there's some, backing down a little bit from, okay, it's okay, it's not a big deal.
Right.
God's gonna take care of us. I think that really comes into play too.
Okay, so is that part of what we struggle with? Fear of, I don't know,
I don't know that,
being hurt, and maybe in some form or fashion, not necessarily physically, but,
maybe, I don't know.
okay?
That's a good question. I didn't really think of it in that manner, but yeah, I don't know.
So I'm camping out here, in case you haven't noticed. Because I want to hear some resolutions. So how do we get past this fear of control, or this need to control, this lack of trust, this maybe fear of losing something, fear of being hurt in some form or fashion?
Well, that's how we feel about God, not
How so,
necessarily
Paul?
how we feel about ourselves.
Okay, so you're saying the root cause of all of this is how we feel about God.
It all comes to how we feel or how we think about God.
Mm.
And what He, the provider, has given us. It's just all about how can we trust Him to continue to give the right things that would be a blessing to other people to us?
Mm.
Or are we just thinking about ourselves? But it's ultimately how we feel that God has given us. Isaac felt like it belonged to God. It was my dad's. It belonged to God. It's okay. I don't want to contend with that.
All right,
I don't mess with that because I know if I keep it, he could have probably dug 1,000 wells.
Right.
And it still would have birthed water. It still would have given that water. But he finally finds one that nobody's going to argue about. But that's the thing. It's how we feel about God. It's
Yeah.
how we
Will God keep providing?
will He keep doing it. And He does every single time. Even if it hurts, even if it's painful. I think we're afraid of that sometimes.
Mm.
But He always will. That's why these stories are so important.
Amanda and I, we were at home yesterday, and we had just gotten back from, where did we go?
Birthday breakfast.
Oh, we were celebrating Ever's birthday yesterday, and we've just gotten back from birthday breakfast. And we're in the house, and somebody knocks on the door, and Ever goes, "Mom, Dad, somebody's at the door." And this strung out lady, homeless lady, was on our front porch. And she's asking for a ride. And I'm going to tell you the hardness of my heart and the softness of Amanda's heart here, okay? She's obviously high, obviously messed up. She's like, and our garage was open. She's like, "I was going through your garage, looking at your stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, what? Like, you were going through my garage?" And and so Amanda's kind of hesitant, and I'm like, okay.
Find anything?
Yeah, like, and so anyways, Amanda's like, "We'll give you a ride," and, she's like, "Here's money," just all these things. She wasn't doing that, but we're like, yeah, Amanda's like, "Come on, I'll show you through the garage." Amanda's handing her bags of stuff in the garage. Amanda's like, "This is stuff I don't have to get rid of, clothes and all this stuff." And she's sitting there, this lady is picking through our garage, looking at all my stuff, and I'm sitting there, my hardness of heart, my mind's like, she's setting me up for a robbery. Like, she's trying to scope my place out. I'm on high alert. I got my 9mm in my back belt, and I'm just sitting there, like, watching her like a hawk. And Amanda's like, "All right, let's load up," and she sits up front with me. Well, we pull out, and there's a guy standing on the road scoping her house out. He's high as a kite, too. And we're like, "Oh, does your friend need a ride?" I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me here." And so we didn't have enough seats for this guy to get in. And she's like, "Oh, he can walk, just drive by him." I'm like, what? Very bizarre situation played out yesterday for us. And this guy walks up to the car. I'm like, "I'm sorry." And then it's like, okay, I'm getting a little nervous because this guy was, not there and looked dangerous. Anyways, I said, "Hey, do you know where to go? We'll take her. We'll get y'all something to eat." All this, all that. I'm thinking, get them out of the car, get them away from my house, blah, blah, blah. So we go, and I'm dragging this out, but we go drop her off at Dodge's, Dodge's gas station over there. And Amanda goes, "What was your friend's name?" She's like, "I don't know." He doesn't have a clue who he was. I'm like, "Well, that's great, because he's back at our house, scoping our house out." Anyways, we drop her off. Amanda goes in, buys her like 5 meals. She's grocery shopping in there and all this stuff. Amanda gives her cash. And she was asking me to go to the ATM. She was asking for all sorts of stuff, being very brazen, asking, like, going through our garage and grabbing stuff. Very brazen. In my mind, I'm like, that's my well. That's my well. Like, that ATM is my well. And Amanda's like, "Here you go." Why? Do you want to? Yeah, no, I'm praising you for that. Amanda she wasn't that careless. It makes her sound careless.
She's very hospitable.
She's very hospitable, yes. Although she was not going to invite that lady into our house for dinner. James.
Doesn't Jesus say, "Give without thought of return"?
Right.
Wait, we can't use that against anybody else.
What if they does it without thought of? Yeah, no.
Amanda did say at one point, I'm not comfortable with the kids in the car if that guy gets in the car. And I said, I agree. I don't want him sitting behind me.
He's leaving out details of this.
A ton of details here, and I need to finish, but
I'm not
that all led to a question. It all led to a question. Well, Amanda wanted me to take them both. She's like, "You just take them." I'm like, "I'm not coming back if I do that. Like, I'm dead." And she's searching the insurance policy like, "Is that up to date?" Why are we reluctant to be this way?
Because they're high.
Because they're high. I get that. I don't want to enable people. I agree with Jay 100%, and I said that yesterday. I don't want to enable them to keep getting drugs, but even people that aren't in that situation, how do we, give me some things we do proactively to overcome this and be more hospitable and giving. Even our brothers and sisters, we feel put out if you ask me for something. Yeah, Paul, and then Amanda.
Well, Jesus makes the comment, he says, you're always going to have the poor among you.
Right.
You know, we need to be offering the thing that matters the most.
Yes.
Isaac is offering, we've talked about this, water, which is life. We're always going to have people that are not as, don't have as much as we do.
Right.
I think there needs to be boundaries associated with stuff like that.
I agree.
You know, but I also think we need to be offering the things that really matter the most. Stuff is just stuff. I mean, we are inundated with, I mean, we've got a 10,000 unit storage facility going in on Higdon Ferry.
Mm-hmm.
Storage facilities are killing it in this country. We have too much stuff, I get that. But the ultimate, I never saw anybody's life change when I was treasurer for the Idabel Ministerial Association. Not one person's life changed because I paid their bill.
There's got to be reform, and a lot of, I agree completely.
So a lot of that is, there needs to be boundaries with that. But what are we truly, Isaac was offering life.
Right.
For people to live at those wells and grow their families or whatever they needed to do. But that lady going through y'all's junk,
She was helping us out. I mean,
Right.
that's just,
but you're giving her stuff that you're not gonna need, right?
right, not necessarily. She's like, you got a tent? And I was like, yeah, I got a really nice tent, but I'm still using that tent. Like, yeah. And that tent's not going to help you stay warm. It's about as thin as this shirt, you know.
And I don't know, I've always been, I don't know about giving just stuff away or giving things away just because people want them or need them. I think there needs to be some boundaries associated with that. And I think that's why Jesus said what he said.
I agree with that completely. And I don't want to talk about reform here and that stuff. Let's talk about our hearts, okay? Leslie Jo. And then
We
Mark.
all have wells in our life, and I think that the degree to which God calls us to is where he's working on our hearts. So here, he's given up, what, two or three wells?
Mm-hmm.
But I think at each turn, he gained in his relationship with God because he knew how it turned out the last time. Okay, well, that made me uncomfortable, and I had to give that up to trust him in moving forward. He provided again. And then had to give that up. And had a little bit more trust maybe because he saw how it had worked out the last time.
Right.
And so while it may not be a well of water that we're giving away, there's still things that God's calling us to let go of control over in our lives, situationally and in relationships and just in our daily walks that are molding us to be more like Christ, and that all of those may look different depending on the person and the level of control we feel like we need
Absolutely.
in our lives. And so
Yeah, I think that's
also,
great.
this is totally unbiblical, but he didn't have to dig those wells, so it may have been easier to give away. Well, sure you
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
didn't dig those
Isaac
wells.
wasn't out there. Yeah, right. Martin, lay some wisdom on us.
Well, this isn't about being generous or putting stars in your crown. I just say it's more of a practical thing, and this is, I'm going to tell you what I would have done in your situation in that deal. I'm not saying that yours wasn't more noble. I'm just saying yours was more foolish.
I didn't do.
Everything you did was foolish.
I let my wife lead in that situation.
I'm not saying that foolishness wasn't noble, okay? But I'll tell you what, because this happens all the time at gas stations.
Mm-hmm.
A perfect stranger will come up to you and solicit you. And I'm not against you giving them a $20 bill or something like that. I mean, that's all it takes. It's probably good. But when somebody is really in need, to ferret out good intent versus bad, what I like to do is say,
Yeah.
I don't mean to, I'm not, I mean, I tell you what, I applaud your generous heart. I think we all.
Well, applaud Amanda's heart, because my heart was hard, and I was ready. I was prepared.
No, it wasn't.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
I
Yeah.
think it was boundary driven.
It is boundary driven. It's protection driven. Right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But let me tell you something about myself. I live for danger a little bit. Because every day is like the same. Anytime like something dangerous pops up, I'm like, yeah, let's go. I don't want my kids involved. I don't want my wife involved necessarily, but at the same time, I wasn't going to let a guy sit behind me and choke me out while I'm driving down the road. But these moments that have happened throughout my life, and I'm like, that adrenaline gets going. Maybe that's why I like being on a mountain bike. Trey.
So I would say, if you steal my sleeping bag and you got your hand on your gun, don't steal my sleeping bag,
Yeah, right.
Like that's.
My hand wasn't on my gun. It could have been in 2 seconds, but yeah, Trey.
Well, I mean, you have to just start, even with the situation of Isaac, how much before this in the Bible was it where he lied about who his wife was?
Yeah, time frame, I don't know.
It's not like he didn't, out of fear, make the decision, and not the same thing, but I'm saying like, when there's danger involved, I mean, it's a lot different than a
Yes.
situation where, again, someone's coming to you, and it's a situation like a brother or sister where you really want to help them.
Right. And I think we should seek out those opportunities for people that really need help.
Yes.
Christy, then Justin.
That's what I was gonna say. God calls us to be generous beforehand.
Right.
He calls us to give money to the church. He calls us to help the needy and the homeless. That's for our sake, not for his.
That's what Amanda and I had this conversation yesterday, and I said, listen, if that ever happens again, you talk through the window, especially if I'm not home, and you say, I can't help you right now. Like, I will call the police. I can't help you right now. And we had this conversation, but like the people that really need help are hard to find. The single moms struggling, the living paycheck to paycheck, like they're hard to find. They're not standing on the corners asking for money necessarily because they got kids to take care of. Justin?
I guess I'm guilty of it, because I find myself gravitating back towards, if this would have never, this is past practice. Past practice has been set. How many of these wells, and maybe it's right or wrong, I don't know, but my mind keeps thinking, well, if his dad wouldn't have given those away, then he wouldn't have to give them away. That's what I keep thinking. I keep thinking, well, and unfortunately, in today's society, the way things work is now, that lady goes and says, hey man, I found a sucker. I found this guy. He's generous. You can pull his heartstrings, and before you know it, you'll have two or three others, and I know I need to work on that. That's something that I need to fix within myself, because I know that it's not maybe 100% correct in the way I approach that, but it's the way I look at it, is how many of these wells is he going to have to keep giving away until he says,
Till he
no,
can
I'll teach you.
settle.
How about I teach you to dig your own?
So let me finish
I don't know, that's where I find myself in this struggle.
Well, I was sitting online last night looking up security gates and all this stuff, it like fueled this whole spur.
Can I just make
One comment.
I need everyone to know that he's leaving out some important details.
I
about
am.
what happened. But I completely 100% agree with especially like what Paul is saying, like you want to give life to people. Like we're not just, the thing is like, I know that in my life, like I have had constantly seeking out opportunities, people in the church, people in our family who are truly in need and truly trying to better themselves in their lives. But I also think that there are situations that come up and you're on the spot and you have to pray and ask God to guide you in the right thing to do. And I think that if we are, there's a problem in our world with people who take and take and take and they're not bettering their lives, and just giving them some clothes or hygiene items, which is what she asked for. That's not going to change her life necessarily. But I also think if we are constantly shutting ourselves to opportunities somebody knocked on our door. It wasn't like I went to the corner where there are people standing there. I think that we have to just, everything's situational, and I think we have to read the situation that we're in at the moment and think what's the wise thing to do show Jesus to this person. And again, as the situation unfolded, I learned more information. I mean, I just think that we have to, our hearts have to be open to any situation that comes before us. So we need to be seeking out all the good things. But
It boils down to our hearts. It boils down to what you trust about God. That's what it boils down to. Now, real quick, because I know we're out of time, but you need to know, as this story plays out, Isaac acting this way, being hospitable, all the nations come to form relationships with him. And you see God reclaiming the nations for himself. So the biblical story is all a big story of God reclaiming these nations, reclaiming the world. And by the time Jesus gets here, you really see that exploding. And then that plan is in place. The new creation is launched. It takes some time. Here it takes 2 generations just for this plan to even start kind of playing out. It's that patience, it's that trust, it's that I know this is who God is. I know that God is going to keep providing and keep fulfilling this promise if I just move towards him, if I move where he wants me to move. And that's what I want you to see in this story. They are a blessing to the nations around them, and people are calling on the name of their God because of the way that they acted. And this promise, this plan is playing out through these hospitable, selfless people. We're done. Thanks for your comments. I love you all. Go enjoy your coffee.
Battery died.
You did it?
We lost you there at the end.
That thing's still popping. Yeah, I kept thinking like,
I turned it off and back on, and it lasted about 30 minutes before I started doing it. So, talk to Patrick. I think these are the same speakers. We just need to swap them out. Because we're not using them every week. Yeah, it is. It is. It's frustrating. What are you going to do? Yeah, that's about all you can do. problem is,